Hello everyone, my name is Ivo and welcome to Cooking with the Koyas. You know, every day in the kitchen is a good day. Some are just better than others, and I think today is going to be one of those better than other days because today I'm going to share with you my recipe for cabbage rolls. Yes, they're delicious, yes, they're tasty, and they're not hard to make. Let's get started right now. First things first, let's get our sauce going. And of course, it's going to start off with 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Okay, and to that we're going to start off by adding, I've got 1 garlic here that I've minced. In goes the minced garlic. We're going to bring that up to temperature and we're going to cook that for 30 to 60 seconds. While that's warming up, we're going to prepare 1 onion. And basically what you want to do here is just slice and when you get to the point where you can't hold it anymore, just fold it over on its flat side and continue slicing. And then you can dice. So what I'm going to say we have here is basically 1 medium sweet onion. That's what I'm using today. Okay, our garlic is just sizzling nicely. It's been about 30 seconds. We do not want to burn the garlic. All we're doing at this stage is flavoring that extra virgin olive oil. So to that, we're going to add our onion. Okay, get our onion in there. Mix that all around, and while that's sauteing, we're going to prepare 1 pepper. I did not have a fresh pepper, so I had to go with frozen. Previously frozen. I always keep frozen red peppers in the freezer just for this particular reason. So here you're going to want to add 1 large bell pepper, or in this case it's a shepherd pepper, but 1 red pepper ideally into the base of our sauce. All right, let's saute these up until the onions become soft. So it's been about, 3-4 minutes now, and our onions have cooked up nicely. Peppers have started to soften just a bit. So let's add our passata. So I have my own homemade passata, but of course you can just buy your own. You could, also known as strained tomatoes. If you can't find passata, you can use chunks of tomatoes as well. Any tomato-based sauce is what you want. So you're going to add 2 liters of passata. There's 1. Which is equivalent to about 8 cups. And 2. All right, so you're going to want to mix that in. And to our passata, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of dried oregano. You could also use basil if you'd like. Okay, and just mix the oregano in. And in fact, we're also going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. This is where you would do salt to taste. Now the passata, my homemade passata, is not salted, so it needs at least 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, but again, salt to taste. Do you like a little more? You could add a little more. You like a little less? Add a little less. All right, and that's basically it for our sauce, except for 1 more ingredient, which is really, really simple, because you can see this is a thicker sauce and we want it to be thinned up a bit. So we're going to add water. There's 1 cup and there's our 2nd cup. So 2 cups of water, and I might add, if you like, you can use vegetable stock instead of water. I typically like to use vegetable stock, but I didn't have any, and water is your alternative. So now it thins it up just a bit. That's nice. We're going to bring that up to temperature, and we do not want this sauce to thicken, so we're going to leave the lid on, and we're just going to bring that up to temp. Once it starts boiling, we're going to leave it on simmer and just let it simmer while we prepare our cabbage rolls. Now, quite simply, we can get our rice going. If you have a rice cooker, by all means use your rice cooker, but if not, very simple to make. half a cup of rice. I like to use parboiled rice, but use any rice that you like. So a half a cup of rice, 1 cup of water. It's always a 2-to-1 ratio. Let's bring that up to temperature and bring it to a boil. Our rice water has now started to boil. So quite simply, at this stage, we add a half teaspoon of half teaspoon of salt. Okay, and just mix in the salt. Stir it in. We do not want to add the salt until the water is boiled. That'll help save your pot. Okay, so now that that's boiling, we're going to bring that down to simmer. And quite simply, it's going to simmer for 15 minutes, and then I just turn the gas off and it'll finish cooking on its own for the final 5 minutes. Let's see how our sauce is doing. Okay, it looks like it's also just starting to come to a boil, so that's good. I'm going to bring it right up to a boil, and then we're going to put this down on simmer as well, and then we can continue preparing our cabbage rolls. There we go. That's what we want to see. Okay, now we're going to simmer it, and in fact, I'm going to move it to the burner behind, because we're going to use this burner for our next step. In a large frying pan, let's add 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Bring that up to heat. And I have here 1 clove of minced garlic. We're just going to add that to our olive oil. And again, we're going to just bring that up to temperature and cook it for like 30 seconds, just to heat and to flavor up that olive oil. Okay, now that that is going, we can add, I have here sliced and diced 2 medium sweet onions. And here you want to slice them as thin as you can and dice them nice and thin as well. The thinner the better. Okay, we're going to add our onion, or 2 onions I should say. Mix that in. And to that, I also have here 8 ounces, and this is the container of mushrooms. It's 8 ounces of mushrooms. It came in this container, but of course I sliced them and diced them myself. I'm using the cremini mushroom here. You could use white mushroom as well. I just prefer the cremini. So 8 ounces of mushrooms, again, sliced and diced. The smaller the better. And we're going to cook these up together for a couple of minutes. So as these are sauteing up, you can see the mushrooms have released a little bit of liquid, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, I wash my mushrooms as opposed to just wiping them clean. I like to wash them clean. A little bit of extra water definitely does not hurt anything at all. So these are cooking up very nicely. I'm just going to let these continue to cook. And now we are ready to add our next ingredient, which is bacon. Here I like to add 4 strips of bacon. And what you're going to want to do, same sort of thing, is just chop the bacon up. And that was another reason why we only added 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, because this bacon, of course, is going to release a lot of juices. Okay, our bacon is diced. We're going to add our bacon. Oh yeah, that's going to add significant flavor. So again, you just now want to mix that in. I'm going to just put the heat down a little bit. Toss it all in together and get the bacon coated with that beautiful onion and mushroom mixture. Mushroom mixture. Try to say that fast 10 times. All right. There we go. It's all mixed in. And we'll let that cook for just about a minute. Now let's add 1 can of tomato paste. That is 5.5 ounces or 156 milliliters. So 1 can of tomato paste in with our mixture. A spatula comes in handy here to make sure you get all the tomato paste out of the can. And again, same process, mix it all together. Get everything coated evenly. And in fact, at this stage, we can drop the heat down, and we're just going to simmer this now for the duration. So continue to stir until it's all covered, and you can tell because everything will turn all red. Okay. There we go. Now we're just going to let this continue to simmer while we prepare our meat and get our cabbage ready. Let's take a look and see how our sauce is doing. Okay, our sauce is looking very good. In fact, it wouldn't hurt to give it a stir. See how liquidy it is? That's because we added all that water. There we go, that's very nice. Okay, we're just going to continue to let that simmer as well. So here I have one large head of cabbage, and in order to get the leaves off, I used to, back in the day, take the cabbage and put it into boiling water, and then take it out and take the leaves off one at a time. Until my good friend Lizanne said, "Evo, you don't need to do that. That's too much work." She said, "Just take your whole head of cabbage, put it in the freezer, and freeze it. Then just take it out and let it thaw." And look how easy that is. Thank you, Lizanne, because this method, it's a lot safer than boiling, and it's a lot quicker. And needless to say, a lot easier. So at this stage, all you want to do is remove all your leaves from your cabbage and just set them aside. In a large bowl, we're going to add 400 grams of lean ground beef and 400 grams of ground pork. Now that will equate to about roughly 1 3/4 pounds of meat. And to our meat, we're going to add half teaspoon of salt and 1 egg. Okay. Now, with clean hands, of course, or you can use gloves if you don't like this part, just mix it all together and get that egg incorporated and the salt into the meat. Now, as you're mixing, you will see it starts to firm up as the ingredients get incorporated and that egg gets all mixed in. Now, you probably know what I'm going to say next. When you think you've mixed enough, just mix a little bit more. You cannot overmix. There we go. That is looking good. So to our ground meat, we have our rice here that we finished cooking earlier. We're going to add our cooked rice. Okay, get it all in there. There we go. Alrighty. And next is our bacon and mushroom mixture that we had. Now, if I didn't mention, I let it stay on simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then I shut it down and it could cool a bit. There we go. That's going to add a ton of flavor. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is mix these all together. So here perhaps might be well suited to get some gloves, or again, you can get your hands in there. But I think what I will do is I will go get some gloves and I'll continue to mix this. Okay, and I like to wash my hands after I put my gloves on. I want those gloves to be very clean. And then same thing, get your hands into the mixture and you want to mix this all together and get it as uniform as possible. And you know what I'm going to say when you I won't even say it. All right, so I'm going to keep mixing here until I feel that everything is incorporated really nicely. So this will only take you about a minute or two. Okay, I have mixed, and then of course I mixed again. Okay, and I know I joke about that, but the reason you want to make sure you give it a little extra mix is you want to make sure that all those flavors are mixed in thoroughly and that you don't have big clumps of flavor on one side and no flavor on another. Okay, there we go. Now we can start filling our cabbage rolls. Okay, so to our oven pan, we're going to add sauerkraut. And now to get this sauerkraut out, sometimes it's difficult. These little jar keys are just fantastic for opening jars. You just get underneath and all it does is it just breaks the seal and allows you to easily open. Okay, so this is one of my little secrets here. And you just line the bottom of your oven pan, baking dish, with the sauerkraut. Just work your way along and just cover the bottom with the sauerkraut. And I like the sauerkraut that's fermented with wine. It's the more natural and much better tasting sauerkraut, in my opinion. There we go. We have a nice bed of sauerkraut layering the bottom of our oven pan. Perfect. All right. Now we can start rolling our cabbage rolls and placing them into our oven dish. And I have different piles going here. The first pile I have here is, these are the larger, the very first ones that come off of the cabbage, the leaves, they're the larger ones. And then I have the next size down, I'm gonna say the medium-sized ones. And then I have a plate of some smaller ones over here. But we're gonna start with the medium and large ones first. So the cabbage leaves, they have a thicker membrane here, which makes them harder to roll. So you can either cut that membrane out, or if you want to leave that membrane in, quite simply, just take a knife and just skim it. Skim it in half, let's say, like that. And that will make it much more easier to roll. Otherwise, you can cut it out. But I'm going to leave it just like that for now. And I'm going to take a good heaping, more than a tablespoon of mixture. Start to roll, and then as you get your first roll done, stop right there, take one end, fold it over, take your other end here, fold it so you're folding them both to the inside, and then you just continue to roll. There you go. So there's one cabbage roll there. Now I do not like to stick them with a toothpick. You don't have to. Just put them upside down into your baking dish. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing here with this one. I'm just going to remove a bit. Okay, remove a bit. Open up my leaf, take a good heaping, it's probably equivalent to almost 2 tablespoons. Give one roll, then stop. Take one end, tuck it in, take the other end, tuck it in, and then just roll it. There we go, that one's done. And put it right beside the other. Now, if you want to remove, I'll show you how to remove that. It's very easy. You're going to use basically in a V-like shape. Just remove that piece. So if you decide to do that method, it's still fine because you have lots of cabbage to roll into. So take your mixture, add your mixture. Take one fold. Don't worry about that it's open here, okay? Because we're going to continue to roll. Tuck the 2 ends in and then continue to roll, and you'll see that open part now has become sealed. There we go. All right, so let me continue to fill these and fill this dish. There we go. Our first tray is ready. Look at that. Little bundles of joy right there. Don't they look nice? All right. So now I've taken the sauce off the stove, and you can see here it's got a nice liquidy consistency, and that's what you want. It's thicker than tomato juice but thinner than sauce. All right, that's exactly what you want right there. So take that sauce and you want to completely cover all your cabbage rolls. So just work it in and completely cover, let it soak down in there too. We have plenty of sauce here, so don't be shy. Now the oven is, I heard it, it is ready to go. It's preheated at 375, so that's good. And I still have a little more meat mixture left, as well as cabbage. So while this is cooking, I will finish making the rest of those cabbage rolls, which, by the way, these freeze up very, very nicely. Okay, so there we go. I think they're all covered. I'm just going to add just a little bit more, just to make sure they're all covered. Now, once they're covered, what you can do, what I like to do, is, you know, I take the cabbage, those little pieces of cabbage that we had, and just place them on top. Now these ones, you know, you're not going to use for cabbage rolls, so they're perfect for lining the top of our oven dish. Okay. Finish layering that. There we go. Just like a nice blanket, isn't that nice? So into the oven we go at 375. And we are gonna bake these cabbage rolls for 2.5 hours. So set the timer for 2.5 hours and we'll come right back at you. Fast forward 2.5 hours. Our time is up. Time to take these cabbage rolls out of the oven. Oh boy, that looks good. Yes. Oh yeah. Hard to see anything because they're all covered, but inside are those beautiful little bundles of joy. Okay, so we're just gonna let this cool a little bit. You know me, I gotta do the taste test, but we'll cut into one. I can't wait too much longer, so let's take this top layer off. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, they look like they cooked very, very nicely. It's still steaming hot, piping hot. Remove that top layer. There we go. That is actually worth a photo right there. So I should have mentioned, we did get 12 cabbage rolls here, and I was able to get 8 more rolls with the remaining mixture and leaves. So 20 cabbage rolls total. All right, let's get a taste test going. Start with this big one right here in the corner. Oh, that looks good. Oh, yes. And the sauerkraut. Now, the sauerkraut, of course, totally edible, and you eat it with the cabbage rolls. Okay, let me plate 3 of them there. Take that sauerkraut, a little bit of sauerkraut, and I do have some reserved sauce. So we're gonna add a little bit more sauce on the top. There we go, a little more sauce there. Okay, and one more should do it. A little bit there. Oh, there we go. Okay, I had to grab an extra one. Let's just cut into one. Cut it right up the middle. Looky there. That is absolutely perfect. Nothing falling apart on us. There. Held together very, very nicely. Perfect mixture on the inside. You know what that means, folks. Time for the taste test. Always, always my favorite part, the taste test. But just take a look at these beautiful cabbage rolls, folks. Unbelievable. This is where the fruits of your labor come in right here. And it wasn't really that difficult to do. Just make it in stages, put it all together, and then enjoy. Speaking of enjoy, okay, let's take a little bit here, cut a little piece off. Come on, there we go. Okay. I gotta tell you. The flavors on this cabbage roll are unbelievable. Seriously. That sauerkraut on the bottom makes a huge difference. That bacon mixture we mixed in together with the rice and the ground beef and the pork. The flavors are mouth-watering. I honestly hope you get a chance to give my recipe a try for these wonderful cabbage rolls. They are absolutely delicious. You're gonna love them, your family's gonna love them, your friends are gonna love them. I wanna thank you for joining me today with Cooking with the Koyas, and until next time, Buon appetito. I need to have myself a little more. That was superb.